Okay, we're about to start. So, welcome to Ku-ring-gai Council's Public Forum. The Public Forum is an opportunity to share your views on any issues on the Council meeting agenda, on any other general matters that are important to you. It provides an opportunity for councillors to hear directly from the community, understand the needs and concerns of constituents, and make more informed decisions. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that we respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to outline a few procedures in relation to this evening's public forum. I want to remind everyone that this is a public forum and we must all be respectful of each other. I remind councillors of their oath or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Act and printed at the front of the business paper. All attendees must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. This meeting is being recorded and the webcast will be published to Council's website. Councillors, council staff and speakers will be shown on camera. Attendees must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, public alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct or making other potentially defamatory statements. Any statements made and actions taken by individuals are those of the individuals making them and are not endorsed or supported by Council. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during the forum. Councillors and council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they have about any item of business that is on the agenda this evening. A few reminders for our speakers this evening. Speakers cannot use or present any props, audio or visual material. Any written material must be lodged when registering or handed to staff. Each speaker has 3 minutes to address council. A chime will sound when you have 30 seconds left to speak. If you have a lot to say, I encourage you to submit a written submission. Each councillor may ask a maximum of 2 questions. Speakers are under no obligation to answer, but if you do, please limit it to 1 minute. Speakers cannot ask questions of councillors or council staff. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for councillors? Okay, looks like there are none. I will now go through tonight's agenda. I have no written submissions that have been received on any agenda items. I will start with GB1. We have Miss Janet Harwood, who will be speaking against. The topic is minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meetings held on 12 and 19 September 2024.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I always try and speak on behalf of Ku-ring-gai's eco-assets. The king parrot, the powerful owl, the bush rat, the bandicoot, the water dragon, and their vanishing food and habitats, and especially I try to speak about Crown and public land on which they survive. However, this becomes a very serious issue. As said, this local government area is of double significance, built and natural. The New South Wales Auditor General is scathing of Crown lands records. This committee, the AREC committee, must closely examine these assets, especially since this local government area's LEP 2015 has planned Ku-ring-gai as a standard local government area. This means Ku-ring-gai has been considered of less intrinsic value than it actually is. ARIC is working on incorrect assumptions and parameters. 3 minutes is not long enough to tell you that the ARIC committee cannot fulfill the functions of an environmental advisory group. As there is no environmental advisory group, there has been no correct oversight of trees removed on public land across the whole local government area. This impacts all species, including humans. I refer especially to critical habitat and corridor ecology north of the Mona Vale Road. Photos show ecological assets are being lost by using the Biodiversity Conservation State Environment Policy, which is quite opposite to what the policy should do. One direct result of rezoning for development is if a tree is removed, a DA is approved. But another result of rezoning for development is the divestment of valuable public land assets. Is that the end of the?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So, under the current assumptions and parameters, birds and bees and ground-bound wildlife are losing big time.
You can stay there if you like, Janet. You have another item to be speaking on, which is GB8. Yep. And that's the 2024 to 2025 budget review. The first quarter ended September 2024. I believe you're speaking against.
Actually, I'm not against anything. I'm trying to improve the situation. Budgeting and governance in a local government area of double significance is different to a standard local government area. Why? In a double significance, there are assets which belong to the future. Unfortunately, councillors are told to adopt proposals to let these assets be used up and irreversibly lost today. Just one example. Nationally protected trees are removed and assessed according to development assumptions rather than protection assumptions. How do we know this? In July, the tree removers of a perfectly strong and healthy tree, when asked why the tree was being removed and where the wood was going, they said the work order came from council and the wood was going to sawmilling and mulch. The hire of a large crane, the arborist assessments, the removal of the wood would have cost ratepayers in the order of almost $10,000 for one tree in Cadalba Crescent in Tarramara. What about the protected trees removed in each of Tarramara's 5 precincts? 6. And the one in Tarramara's Memorial Park and multiple others. So the questions for the budget review are: how much has been spent removing trees on public lands? Can the budget review protect old growth trees from incorrect process? Is there a cap on what ratepayers are paying to remove the very eco assets that we, in fact all species, need for survival? What is the correlation between rezoning for development and tree loss in this local government area. Is that it?
You still have 25 seconds.
I forfeit them.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you, Janet. The next item on the agenda is GB12, which is the proposed redevelopment of St Ives Shopping Village involving adjoining council land and road reserve. The first speaker is Mr Gerald Liu. Come. Thank you. Just. I believe you're speaking against the item, is that correct?
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I am Gerald Liu, and I'm a medical doctor living very happily in St. Ives. The main point I'd like to make tonight regarding this point is that to remind everyone that just 2 years ago, the St. Ives shopping center owners tried to sell the property for over 500 million, but they were not successful. I'm afraid that the current proposal can give the impression that the shopping center owners are trying to grab public land from council in order to dress up the property for another go at selling it to a big developer. I do not think that this is a good look for the council, and I don't think that council should be in the business of helping big businesses get better prices for their properties, especially this one, which is the biggest property in St. Ives and could be referred to the state government for development of 15 stories or more, as has occurred in the Linfield area. I feel it is important for the council to not just be impartial, but to always be seen to be impartial as well, which this proposal unfortunately does not appear to be. I therefore ask council, please not to go down this track, which I fear will result in the irreversible loss of one of the best things about living in St. Ives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Liu. Our next speaker is Mr Michael Clayton, who will be speaking for.
This is very impromptu. Thank you, councillors and council staff, for letting me speak tonight. I'm for this proposal. I'm aware that this is just to close the roads as the next step for making for the applicant to make a development application after the acquire of the roads. Current area is not the best use of land, currently being just a very minor surface car park and a car wash station. I don't think being emblematic of car dependency and usage is the best use of the land, and I think for the area that it is in, St. Ives is lacking a lot of commercial space for a lot of businesses that could very much operate in the space. Inside the centre, we've had lots of turnovers of smaller businesses into larger businesses because there's a lack of space. So all that, the rent will slowly be going up and up, and small business is no longer able to pay. Also, more commercial space would allow for a greater diversity of commercial businesses to take place in St. Ives. So I think eventually this will become a good thing. Addressing possible concerns of development, like change of hands, sure, but I think a better use of this land is entirely necessary, and if it can go up and increase commercial and residential space, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
No questions?
No questions from councillors, so thank you. Our next speaker is Mr David Johnson, and I believe Mr Johnson is speaking against the GB item.
Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, firstly, congratulations on all your reappointments and appointments. So, thank you very much for your community service. So, I'm speaking against the proposed redevelopment of St Ives Shopping Village involving adjoining council land and road reserve. There's been a report that's been prepared for this meeting. And the first thing I'd just like to say is that St Ives Shopping Centre does not control the entire site. Let me repeat that. St Ives Shopping Centre does not control the entire site. In the report, on page 1, it appears the authors of this report seem to be, well, let's just say there's inconsistencies in the language used. So, for example, on the purpose of the report, it refers to several roads, including Denley Avenue. It refers to a laneway in Denley Avenue. It refers to a road closure application. It refers to the mechanism to which Council believe it has the authority as Part A, Division 3 of the Roads Act 1993. It makes mention of one property being affected and a right-of-way being proposed in favour of that person, or that property owner, I should say. And then in the end, it talks, in the summary, it talks about it goes back to talking about a road closure, and it will be a right-of-way in favour of the property. Now, if we look at the legislation, the Roads Act 1933, 38A, when council may close council public road, a council may propose a closure of a council public road for which it is a roads authority if the road is not reasonably required as a road for public use, whether present or future needs. Well, the property, one of the properties affected by this proposed development, which St Ives Property does not own, which is 190A Monavale Road, it's currently being operated as a real estate business, access their property and for their clients. I don't know how many car movements a day, perhaps 50, perhaps more. And also it makes reference to future needs. It's a valuable site. The owner of that property may sell it for a future use that contains considerable more car parking movements. B, the road is not required to provide continuity for an existing road network. Well, it is. The person needs to use the road to access their property. And C, if the road provides a means of vehicular access to a particular land, another public road provides lawful and reasonable practical vehicle access to that land. What is being proposed is to take the road away and replace it with a laneway, and the access is via a right-of-way, which is not a road.
All right, Mr. Johnson, you've run out of time, so it's all right if we could just wrap it up.
So just in conclusion, 3 items need to be met for council to pass this law under 38A, A, B and C. So neither of the items have been met, and I strongly encourage you all to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Matthew Johnson, who will be speaking against.
Yes, good evening, everyone. How would you like it if the road you use to access your property by car was attempted to be closed by council? Furthermore, what if you received no notification or consultation about this? Well, this has just happened to me, and to my horror, I found out about it from a post on Facebook. I am the owner of 190A Monavale Road, which is located directly in front of St Ives Shopping Village. My family have owned this property for around 30 years, during which time we have operated a family business from the premises. I currently have a rear lane access to the on-site parking for around 7 cars to my property from Denley Lane, which is one of the roads Council are proposing to close. They are then proposing to provide me with a dangerous and unsafe right-of-way over private land accessed from Busy Monavale Road, which is 3 lanes each way and has clearways at peak times. I completely object to this and can't see how it could pass the required traffic safety standards. Also, this is in breach of Division 3 of the Roads Act 1993. Section 38A states when council may close a public road, and subsection C states if the road provides a means of vehicular access to particular land, another public road provides lawful and reasonably practicable vehicular access to that land. And I am sure you understand the difference between a public road and a private right-of-way. There is something very irregular and inconsistent in this process. It is now evident that council have been actively consulting with EK Nominees Proprietary Limited, owners of St Ives Shopping Village, since January this year, as shown on their public timeline, and have totally ignored me. Also, I just stumbled across an on-site meeting between council and St Ives Shopping Village last night when I was driving into my property. It is well known that EK nominees have been lobbying council for an extended period to have greater height limits and floor space ratio. Also, they tried to sell the shopping centre in 22 with expectations of over 500 million. In my opinion, this current proposal from EK nominees is questionable and is only step 1 in the process. I will now wrap up. It is certainly possible that if EK nominees acquire this council-owned land, either they or a future owner of St Ives Shopping Village can then later submit an application to the State Planning Panel for greatly increased height limits and floor space ratio, which would massively increase the value of the site. Another property in Ku-ring-gai has recently been approved by the State Planning Panel for 15 stories.
Mr. Johnson,
I'll finish now. I urge councillors not to vote in favour of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Johnson.
question.
Oh,
Sorry, John.
sorry.
I would love to answer any questions from anybody in the room.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Okay, thank you for coming along tonight
That's
and
fine.
speaking and sharing your views. I have a couple of quick questions.
Yes, go ahead.
First question is, did you happen to notice on page 533 of the business paper where it outlines the process that it talks about a formal consultation process with the community?
Yes, but may I just point out that I actually found out about this from a post on Facebook last Tuesday night. Had I not seen that, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to know this public forum was on tonight or that there was a meeting on later this month. So I don't accept that. I think it is a denial of my rights to be consulted and informed about this matter, which has a very significant impact on my property.
That was my second question. What is your affiliation? Do you have an affiliation of some sort with the property in question that you're talking about that has the right of way?
No, I'll explain to you. My family have owned this property for around 30 years. It's a Torrens title property. We currently have access to our parking from the rear from Denley Lane. So basically, by closing the road, we will be denied the use of that public road, and the replacement is actually a right-of-way, which is not a public road, and therefore, from a legal perspective, this is in breach.
Okay, thank you very much.
Total breach. Okay, next question.
Thank you.
Oh,
There's
thank you very
No
much.
more questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy to stay here all night talking. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mrs. Christiane Berlioz, who will be speaking against.
Okay, Madam Mayor, councillors, I'm speaking against the process really up to date, not necessarily focusing on redevelopment. My concerns to the process committing to road closures without more than an outline sketch of the shopping centre footprint and the lack of clarity in the report is the concern. My concern is that councillors will be committing to road closures based on a sketch and vague promises from the shopping centre. This raises concerns about the potential outcomes of the process. Without proper plans, there's no assurance of any public benefits. I understand that EK nominees have big plans for redevelopment. It's in their interest to maximise profits. However, you as councillors were elected to represent the benefit to the community, not to maximise the profits of a commercial interest. So why is the shopping centre dictating the terms of their redevelopment and the timing of the closure of these roads? Identifying any public benefits cannot be made until at least architectural plans are available. An assessment of land value for disposal can't be made until a DA comes in with FSR and heights that are locked in. And as you all know, an uplift and shop-top housing is possible, which would affect land value. So to commit to road closures with intention to divest public land without firm plans from the developer is, in my opinion, premature. As a former councillor, I'm acutely aware of the rhetoric employed in these situations, including, this is only the first step in a process. Oh, there will be community consultation. Oh, there's no obligation to sell the land, and ultimately any proposal will return to council for a resolution. But in reality, voting for the closure of the roads clearly demonstrates your intent, setting the wheels in motion, and it will be very difficult to wind back. I must emphasise the importance of transparency and the necessity of prioritising public benefit over private commercial interests in this situation. I've nearly finished. The public benefits delivered must outweigh the road closures and the disposal of 4,000 square metres of public land. Why aren't councillors demanding that detailed plans be provided to identify public benefits that might be delivered? Why is the centre dictating the terms on road closures? You as councillors will be accountable to the public. It's essential to provide detailed plans and justification to the community before progressing with the road closures.
There's no questions, so thank you, Ms. Berlioz. Our next speaker is Mr. Isaac Bain, who I believe will be speaking against.
I'm not totally, good evening, Madam Mayor and everyone here. I'm not totally against the development of the shopping centre, but I am against the road closures. I own the property at 200 Monavale Road and have since 1995. I was not advised of this proposal to close Durham Avenue or Denley Lane, and it was only by accident that I found out about this. This will completely ruin the business in this building. It's a Liquorland outlet. It's been there for nearly 30 years. It's a very successful business, and a lot of St. Ives people, I'm sure, use it. The business there is no way that this business will be able to function without access that it's got at the moment to the lanes. People drive into the drive-through and they drive out the other side. So presently vehicles are entering and exiting through this building. Also, delivery trucks have to deliver supplies. I don't know how this is going to work if the road is closed. This business will fail to operate unless they get access, as they do not, and they will not, if this road is closed. They are the main tenant in the building, and we get income from that building. Will not be able to get the income because no one is going to be able to operate like they do without access to the real lanes. So I'm against closing the lanes, but I've been in retail all my life, and I'm very happy for the retail centre to expand as much as they'd like, providing those lanes are not closed and I can still operate the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Our last speaker is Mr. Tony Cocci, and if Tony, you could just advise us whether you're speaking for or against this item before you start.
Madam Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to allow to speak tonight. I'm Tony Marcocci. I represent DK Nominees, the owners of Sadive Shopping Village. Yesterday I did meet with Mr. Johnson, and hence why I thought I'd better come and speak tonight, because I just want to make sure that there's a clear indication of where the process is at. This is not a lane closure per se. It is a procedural process that the council has to go through for it to take it to the next step. So it is not a foregone conclusion that all this is going to happen. Any property owner that is not part of the shopping centre will have access to the rear. I'm pretty sure council will mandate that when they deal with the development further down the track. We cannot and will not go to the expense of doing a DA. We don't own the land, so we can't start that process because we don't know whether it's going to take 6 months or 3 years for the RMS to agree to the process of the lane closure. And again, that's clear. It's not actual physical closure. It's a process that council has to go through. So there's many steps. Council is still the owner. Council can still deal with it when it's on the sale process, and they can determine what the value, determine what gets built on it, and condition it accordingly. So it's quite a misunderstanding to say it's closed. So Sadive Shopping Village needs to expand. It's a lot of its expenditure is going out of the area. There's all the properties on Manavale Road are pretty old and need of refurbishment or reconstruction more than refurbishment. And as Mr. Johnson pointed out earlier, with a clearway, there's no parking there, so those businesses there do suffer. All the properties will still have re-lane access. The process has to take the steps and probity with council. So when Christiane, to your point, we will lodge a DA only when it's applicable to lodge a DA. This is purely the first start. Nothing can happen until the first wheel starts turning, and that is to start the process. And then all the property owners will have rear lane access.
Thank you, Tony. We will now move on. No, there are only questions from... yeah, unfortunately it's not in the Code of Meeting Practice. Any questions from councillors? No. Okay. All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tony. We are now moving on to general business that is not on the agenda items. And the first speaker I have is Joe Carolus, who is representing a Ku-ring-gai housing group. And the topic is Ku-ring-gai Community Conversation held the 3rd of September 2024 and resultant formation of the Ku-ring-gai housing group. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for explaining why I'm here. It is the group that the Mayor kindly referred to is the Ku-ring-gai Community, Ku-ring-gai Housing Group. It has 55 committed members and is growing. Our objective is housing that best meets the needs of residents while protecting the heritage, high design values and environmental assets of Ku-ring-gai. Council has itself acknowledged the lack of a sufficient medium density housing and the critical shortage of affordable rental accommodation for key workers. In April this year, Council unanimously agreed to commission a report into affordable housing in Ku-ring-gai. We would like to see a copy of that report and to know what steps Council has taken since to develop an affordable housing policy. With regard to the TOD, we appreciate Council's decision to consult residents about the least objectionable way to accommodate the new dwellings that the New South Wales Government is requiring in Ku-ring-gai. But we ask you to aim higher. The TOD proposes to give away to developers irreplaceable airspace around the 4 key stations, airspace that will be gone forever, and to give back to the community a miserable 2% for affordable housing. This is a historic moment that will be lost unless Council takes a proactive stance now, seizing on the TOD as an opportunity to secure affordable rental properties near to public transport. We are asking Council to introduce a mandatory 10% of affordable housing in the TOD developments, as Willoughby Council is now doing. Do not let all the unearned uplift in value that results from the TOD go in its entirety to individuals and developers. That airspace is a resource belonging to Ku-ring-gai as a community, and at least 10% should be returned to meet essential community housing needs. At our Ku-ring-gai conversation in September, we heard many disturbing stories rising from the lack of affordable dwellings, rental dwellings in Ku-ring-gai. Council has heard these stories too. You know the need. We urge you to introduce mandatory 10% affordable rental housing in the developments that will be compulsorily introduced in Ku-ring-gai. Fight not just for heritage and conservation, but also for people, for all of us in the community who depend on essential workers. And isn't that everyone? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker is Mrs. Jenny Ross, also representing Ku-ring-gai Housing Group, with the topic being towards a constructive community-led solution to Ku-ring-gai's affordable housing needs.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I've been a resident in Turramurra for 25 years and, as has been mentioned, I'm a member of the Ku-ring-gai Housing Group. And I believe that there is a need for more affordable rental housing in Ku-ring-gai. Let me give you an example. At the IGA in Turramurra, where I shop, there's a wonderfully warm and helpful cashier named Rose. And Rose lives with her family in Parramatta. For over 5 years, Rose has commuted an hour and a half each way to work. If she could live in Ku-ring-gai, she would have 15 hours more time every week to spend with her family and to contribute to her community. To continue being a thriving community, we need people like Rose, people who work in our retail and food stores, people who care for our children, our aged members, nurses, teachers, fireys, police officers. All these people are part of our community, and for them to actually be in our community, they need somewhere to live. They need affordable housing. For the past 4 years or so, I've been co-chair of the Sydney Alliance Hornsby local team. Sydney Alliance is a non-partisan political organisation that brings together schools, religious groups, civil society, organisations and trade unions to work together for the common good of Sydney. In early 2021, our team conducted community listening events in the Hornsby LGA, and we identified affordable housing as a critical need. And this led to a community forum which we held just before the elections, where we sought and received specific commitments from candidates regarding inclusion of affordable housing in what was at the time the soon-to-be-released Hornsby Town Centre Master Plan. And when that plan was released, we were delighted to see that the council had included even more affordable housing than the 10% that we'd asked for. Now, when the state government announced its intention to step in with its own plans for affordable housing, which we've heard a little about, for Hornsby, our team backed the council by making a submission in support of council's existing plans. Now, while the process is still playing out, we'd like to think that the Hornsby Shire Council is in a strong position to retain its planning powers in relation to that master plan. We had another community forum leading up to the recent council elections where we thanked the councillors for sticking with the commitments that they'd made. Well, the councillors in attendance weren't really sure what to do with a group of more than 150 people representing 30 community groups who came together to thank them for the great job that they'd done. And then we invited those councillors, those candidates, to explain their vision for affordable housing going forward, and we workshopped with them prior to that time to come up with those plans. So in closing, can I simply say this, Mayor and councillors, that the the Ku-ring-gai Housing Group wants to get to know each of you. We want to hear your vision for affordable housing here, and we want to work with you to identify specific action that you'll take to commit to publicly. So I'm almost done. Firstly, we think this will produce more affordable housing options, an increased likelihood that council will retain its planning powers, and thirdly, that you councillors will be recognised in this community for leading the process and delivering on your commitments. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Jenny. Our next speaker is Ms. Janet Harwood, and the topic is Monitoring Australia's Ecological Survival, how Ku-ring-gai can take the lead.
It's a big topic, too big for 3 minutes. But the current division of Ku-ring-gai into two halves, north and south of Mona Vale Road, where the south has the Todd and the north has lots of planning proposals, is destroying the integrity of the double significance of this local government area. It is pushing cumulative destruction of what belongs to the future city. The forest and the heritage buildings, they belong to the city. It is allowing the media and the development system to control overdevelopment. Sorry, I need my specs. There are letters showing how Ku-ring-gai can take the lead in helping Australia to monitor its survival in ecological sustainability. We can present to the state government an alternative scenario to what is being currently advised. Ever since the advisory group, which helped decision-making in bushland, catchment, and natural areas, was disbanded in 2009, the process has gone off the rails because local conditions and local voices were ignored. So, for example, reports failed to start critically endangered ecological communities from recovering, failed to create employment for ecological understandings, failed to help biodiversity conservation by protecting soils and seed bank. And the court wins for nationally protected forests, such as in the Ripon Grange court case in 2007, failed to set precedents for decision-making. I'd like to give the General Manager and the councillors this letter, which is from the Minister for Local Government, but within it are topics which, if we could solve, we could take the intrinsic value of this local government area towards protection rather than what is happening to it now. So, as I said, 3 minutes is too short, but this is the subject of my research. And I will be sending what I said in the first two items to the federal government to support what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Our next speaker is Michael Claydon on the topic of rethinking heritage and housing.
This is not a prepared speech, it's very impromptu. You can't hear me, sorry, is that better? So yeah, my topic, rethinking heritage and housing, is more a response to the TOD scenarios that council staff have produced and are to be on exhibition from the 15th of November. My comment is that heritage is not a static entity. Heritage is always rethought and reevaluated. What was heritage before may not be heritage in the future. Heritage is a story of a place. It's this, so the current housing that's standing on the land of a heritage conservation area may not be the last. Thus, we should start thinking and rethinking and respect the past and in new housing aspects and new typologies that may sit on this land. By thinking outside the box, we can envision a future where we have more housing at appropriate housing of various typologies that both respect the values of Ku-ring-gai, that embody the values of the Ku-ring-gai and respect the heritage of the past, and also respect the environment of now and hopefully regenerate into the future. Thus, I'm saying we should be actually distilling the values and characteristics of the heritage that we see today, mainly in the heritage conservation areas, and use that to become a core value of the new housing that we should intend to build. By excluding the HCA areas and canopy and many other layers, the TOD scenarios that council staff have come up with, the rezoning that they're proposing is taking the easy way out, in my opinion, and is quite a lazy planning aspect. As we can see in one scenario where we try and preserve 100% of all heritage conservation areas, heritage items, and even canopy, areas of high canopy coverage, we are resulting in buildings of 45 stories and at max. And that is quite a surprising and unnecessary outcome by taking such an easy decision. We should be making harder but more thoughtful decisions in how do we house our future residents. Now, that's because we are limiting the very opportunity for architects of today's generation and future to make their mark on Ku-ring-gai. Council area should not be a museum, but a place of change, a place of an ever-writing story. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
No comments?
Questions? Our last speaker for the evening is Mr. Malcolm Cox, who will be speaking on the transport-oriented development options from last council meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the last council meeting, it was agreed to seek public consultation on the TOD development option and 4 other options that have been developed by council staff. I must say I was pleased to see the options come forward, and I applaud the council and the council staff for the way in which those options were developed and the thorough work that was done. The 4 council developed options are designed to build the 23,000 odd dwellings that are required by the state government by altering a number of the conditions that the state government set out in their initial development plan. One of the conditions that, or condition is such that the state government imposed upon Ku-ring-gai was that all the development would happen south of Mona Vale Road. All of this development is to happen in Roseville, Lindfield, Killara and Gordon. In my view, this creates an unnecessary inequity within our community. The north versus south that a previous speaker just spoke about, that in order to improve the equity, I would encourage council to spread the development load further and take the four options you have and do the work necessary to see what that would mean if we were to put those options around all 9 stations in Ku-ring-gai. Take it north through Pymble, Turramurra, Warrawee, Wahroonga and Waitara. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Okay, thank you everyone for participating in tonight's public forum. The webcast of this forum will be published to Council's website tomorrow. The Council meeting will be held at 7 p.m, Tuesday the 26th of November, and you are encouraged to attend in person or view the live web stream via the Council website. I encourage you all to continue to stay engaged with Council and share your feedback. Thank you again for your participation. I declare the meeting closed at 6:52.